They say playing with LeBron James is a golden ticket, but for some, it's a black hole. Behind the championships and the highlights, there are a lot of dark, hidden secrets the NBA is trying to hide. For some, it cost them their careers. For others, their lives. And for those who survived, like Kyrie Irving, they are speaking up and exposing everything.
You sure this ain't live? Because I'm tired of pretending LeBron isn't an evil man.
But it's not just Irving. We have others like Jokic and Brooks who found a way out. And today, I will be giving you insider info on how each player was able to escape LeBron's control. Wait till you hear how LeBron almost got Irving involved with Diddy. Yeah, it's dark. But before that, let's start with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's story has to be at the top of this list, and honestly, once you hear it, you'll see why. To really get it, we need to rewind to the summer of 2019, the moment everything quietly shifted, when just one decision set off a chain reaction nobody fully realized at the time. This is the part they don't talk about in the NBA. At this time, Kawhi had just done the impossible. He went to the Raptors for one season, carried a franchise that had never won a thing, hit one of the coldest playoff shots ever, shut down Giannis in the finals, outplayed everyone, and walked away with a championship and finals MVP. He wasn't chasing validation anymore. He already had it. Now, he was choosing his future. And the options were crystal clear. He could either re-sign with the Raptors and become a legend there, or he could join the Lakers, teaming up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis to form what looked like the most unstoppable trio in basketball history. Or he could take over the Clippers, a team that had always lived in the Lakers' shadow, and build something entirely on his own terms. On paper, the Lakers seemed like the obvious choice. They had a bigger market and more attention. So the Lakers cleared cap space, held off on other signings, and treated Kawhi's free agency like he was their final infinity stone. But here's where it gets interesting. Multiple insiders, from Raptors front office folks to league reporters, were all hinting at the same thing. Kawhi didn't want to step into a system where the pecking order was already permanent, and with LeBron, it always is. Think of it like a cult. The rules are written, the narrative is set, and anyone who tries to step out of line gets absorbed or erased. Everything runs through him. The offense, the leadership, the media narrative, even the credit. And Kawhi saw that clearly. More importantly, he had just proven he didn't need it. And the funny thing is, Kawhi never came out to say all of this publicly. That's not how he moves. In public, he stayed calm and vague. In fact, in a 2019 interview, he said he didn't want to mislead anyone and wanted to take his time. It was too obvious that he was trying to avoid drama. But he couldn't pretend for long because that same year, when he was asked in an interview about players he admired, he mentioned Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Never LeBron. And every time LeBron's name crept into the conversation, Kawhi totally shut it down.
I like MJ.
MJ or LeBron?
Mike.
LeBron or Kobe?
Kobe.
And when it comes to debates about the greatest of all time, we all know how much LeBron has pushed, how much he's maneuvered, just to make sure his name is in the conversation. But then, everything switched when the Clippers did what the Lakers couldn't or wouldn't do. They didn't ask Kawhi to fit into an existing empire. They built one around him. They traded everything for Paul George, not to overshadow Kawhi, but to stand beside him. And that made all the difference. Because Paul George wasn't an attention vacuum. He was a partner and an elite player, yes, but someone who didn't necessarily demand the narrative or the spotlight. That was the co-star Kawhi wanted, not someone whose presence would dictate every single thing. Because let's be honest, if Kawhi had gone to the Lakers and won titles with LeBron, those rings would have lived under LeBron's legacy first, and Kawhi had just delivered one of the greatest single-season runs ever. He wasn't about to turn it into a footnote, so when people say Kawhi chose the Clippers, that's only half the truth. What he really chose was distance. Distance from the non-stop coverage and the pressure to adjust his game, his voice, and his presence around one man. He made a decision so firm that even with all his tactics and dark connections in the NBA, LeBron couldn't pull him in, even at the peak of his value. And that's the part that rattled people the most. But if you thought Kawhi Leonard was the only superstar who dodged the LeBron orbit, you haven't met the quietest MVP the NBA has ever seen. The Joker isn't just a great basketball player. He's the kind of guy who would rather ride horses and sip coffee in a small Serbian town than ever be part of LeBron's media machine. You've probably heard how Luka Doncic has been actively trying to get Jokic to the Lakers. Like imagine it, Luka and Jokic on the same team. And with the rumors of Giannis also showing interest in the Lakers, on paper, that collaboration would break the league. But here's the twist. Jokic declined totally. In fact, everything about his life suggests he wouldn't touch that situation with a 10-foot pole. And if you're a true Jokic fan, you probably know that while most NBA stars spend their off-seasons in Miami parties, private jets, and brand photo shoots, Jokic retreats to Sombor, Serbia, a town of about 40,000 people, where he trains racehorses, a passion he picked up as a kid and never abandoned. In fact, the dude has 40 to 45 horses back home and talks about them like they are his kids. There was one viral moment that perfectly showed where his heart really was in 2023. Jokic had just won the NBA Finals in 2023, but here was how he reacted.
And now you are an NBA champion, Nikola. How does that feel?
It's good. It's good. The job is done. We can go home now.
Congratulations, Mike.
It was almost like he saw winning the championship and playing the game as a whole as something expected, like completing a task. But then, a couple months later, his horse won a race in Serbia, and he literally cried. He sprinted onto the track, hugged the horse and jockey, and celebrated like it was the greatest moment of his life. That's not a guy who is going to wake up one day and think, yeah, I want to be part of Team LeBron. And it goes deeper than horses. Jokic keeps a lifestyle that most superstars would consider alien. He cycles around his town, plays pickup with childhood friends on the outdoor court he helped build, and people in Sombor basically protect his privacy. In fact, they have an unspoken rule when he's around. No photos and no autographs. That's how grounded this dude is. So when the news started floating around about Jokic joining the Lakers, his core fans immediately knew he would actively reject it. His life is structured to protect what's important to him, a world that doesn't need viral trends, weekly media debates, or contract drama. But at the same time, this isn't some shy fanboy thing. Jokic can handle the bright lights. He's a 3-time MVP and a champion, and has beaten LeBron's teams, and has the numbers, the dominance, and the skill to compete with anyone. In fact, in games against the Lakers this year, Jokic averaged better play and had more free throw attempts than the entire Lakers team in one matchup, so he definitely isn't intimidated at all when they're on the same floor. Think about it this way. LeBron's world is a public spectacle. Jokic's world is private passion. One thrives on being in every conversation, while the other thrives on being himself. And when you put them side by side, you can see why someone like Jokic wouldn't want to get caught up in all that mess. But while some guys escape LeBron by disappearing to their hometown and horses, others didn't get to walk away so cleanly. And this next one is about someone who went from being an NBA champion to the public punching bag the minute he stepped into LeBron's world. If you want a perfect example of how the LeBron machine consumes his teammates, look no further than Mario Chalmers. This guy was literally there, hitting clutch threes, running plays, doing everything right, and somehow became the guy everyone blamed when things went wrong. Welcome to the LeBron effect, folks, where only LeBron is untouchable and everyone else gets eaten alive. Chalmers joined the Miami Heat in 2008, right as LeBron and Wade were forming the Big Three era. By 2010, he was in the finals, playing the most pressure-packed role a point guard could play on a LeBron-led squad. And yes, he had his moments, like when he hit that iconic corner three in Game 4 of the 2012 finals that helped swing the series. But here's the thing. Most people forget. Every time the Heat struggled in a big game, Chalmers' mistakes were blasted everywhere while LeBron got no part of the blame. Go back to the 2011 finals against the Mavericks. Chalmers had some rough shooting nights because he was the guy out there with the ball in pressure moments, but the TV coverage zoomed in on his struggles like he was the problem. Meanwhile, LeBron shot poorly in several games before that, and the headlines said he was adjusting, like we were all just supposed to accept that. And it wasn't subtle, because in every big game you could see it happening. From the cameras, to the commentary, and the instant highlight reels, LeBron's influence and web of control protected him, but anyone else inside it was fair game. Chalmers never publicly complained and never threw teammates under the bus. But by 2015, he quietly left the Heat. He mentioned in an interview that he just wanted distance from a system that eats role players alive. And that's true because he returned to the Heat in 2021 when LeBron had already left. However, in recent interviews, he has talked about how respect and fear in the league used to revolve around Michael Jordan. and how LeBron, despite all his influence, doesn't inspire that same fear.
No one feared playing him the way that they feared some other stars.
That's the truth. Hear people talk and they be like, yo, Jordan, it was a fear. Like, they call him Jesus.
Next up, we're talking about Paul George. And trust me, his story makes even Chalmers look like a warm-up act. If Kawhi's move was a quiet disruption, Paul George's story is more like a slow burn. And it's frankly one of the most under-discussed stories in the NBA. George grew up in the spotlight. He was the Pacers guy, the rising superstar everyone pegged as the next LeBron in the East. And that's the moment he got trapped in LeBron's shadow, because every playoff run meant running into LeBron. First it was with the Heat, then the Cavs, and in every game, he was being measured against someone else's career. And let's be honest, that's not fun for a guy who wants to control his own story. And then came the 2017 free agency. Everyone assumed PG would join LeBron, but he basically said, "Nah, I'm good," and stayed in Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook. On the surface, it looked like it was just him being loyal, but anyone who was a proper NBA fan knew it was because of LeBron. And here's where it gets interesting. Just like Kawhi Leonard, PG has always been diplomatic in interviews. He says he just liked being in OKC, and that was why he stayed. But then, when he was asked about LeBron calling himself the greatest of all time, he straight up shut that down and said LeBron hadn't done enough for him to give himself the title of the greatest NBA player of all time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Who are you?
Who are you? Like, what have you done?
Right.
Prove yourself first.
Waste of time.
Fast forward to 2019, and PG did move to LA, but not to the Lakers. He linked up with Kawhi on the Clippers instead. Now that's interesting because that means he was not trying to run away from Los Angeles or teaming with other elite stars. He just didn't want to play with LeBron. And now, after watching all of that unfold, the next story hits even harder, because no other player on this list has been so exposed, or so close to being pulled into the dark inner circle where LeBron calls all the shots in the NBA. People love to say Irving left Cleveland because of ego, or because he wanted to be the man. But that's the lazy version of the story that the media loves to recycle. If you really look at it, he was running for his life. But let's start from the beginning of all of this. When Irving was drafted number 1 in 2011, he was the face of the Cleveland Cavaliers. That was his team. That was his identity. And then in 2014, LeBron James came back to Cleveland and suddenly everything changed. Literally everything. Irving went from being the focus of every headline in Cleveland to being the guy playing alongside LeBron. Here's the part most people don't know. Irving wasn't even told LeBron was coming back before the decision was made.
I had no idea, man. I found out that Bron was coming back like the rest of you guys. Rest of you guys in the world. I had no inclination. I had no time to prepare. It's not that it was on my bingo card, like, hey, I'm going to spend my career playing with Bron.
Imagine being the franchise star and finding out LeBron is returning to your team without you being part of that conversation. Now, don't get me wrong. They won a championship together in 2016. Irving hit the shot that won Cleveland its first NBA title. But here's where it gets messy. Irving did that as a co-star, and the media still framed it as Irving performing well under LeBron's leadership. And that matters, especially to a player wired like Irving. Plus, LeBron disrespected him at every chance he got. Like in this interview where he literally called Irving a kid. Fast forward to the end of the 2016-17 season. Irving asked for a trade, and the media said it was because he no longer wanted to be under LeBron's shadow. But the real reason was way darker than that. The real reason he left was Diddy. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because I know that already sounds confusing. But according to rumors and insider info, during that period LeBron allegedly tried to recruit Irving into that whole Hollywood underworld where Diddy hosted his weird parties. In fact, a picture went viral of Diddy, Kyrie Irving, and other celebrities on a boat in what seemed like a party. After that experience, in order to save himself, he had to make sure he steered clear of anything that was associated with LeBron, so he left Cleveland. Now, since leaving Cleveland, Irving has gotten to explore his identity outside LeBron's shadow. In Boston, Brooklyn, and now beyond, he's talked about wanting to lead, to find a voice, and to define success on his own terms. And sure, people love to paint this as ego or selfishness or insecurity, but that's lazy commentary. The real narrative is deeper. Irving left because he refused to let his career be defined by being involved with societies and personalities that didn't align with his values. But if Kyrie's move was a quiet exit, the next one is chaos on a whole different level. Because this player didn't just step out of LeBron's orbit, He went straight at it and things got messy fast. Draymond Green didn't quietly avoid LeBron like Kawhi Leonard or Jokic. Nope. He went straight at him, on the court, in the media, and in every opportunity he could. And honestly, that's why his story is so wild. Picture this, the Warriors were facing LeBron's Cavs in the finals again, and it was the defining match of the decade. Draymond's energy, his trash talk, and his physical play, it's all designed to get under your skin. And for a guy like LeBron who thrives on controlling the narrative, this is exactly the kind of headache nobody wants. Then there's the infamous 2016 finals incident in Game 5, where Draymond ended up being suspended for a flagrant foul, and that flipped the entire series, because LeBron's Cavs came back from a 3-1 hole and snatched one of the most insane championships ever. But here's what really went down behind the scenes. Former Cavs player Channing Frye admitted that LeBron wasn't just playing basketball, he was baiting Draymond, literally trying to get him to commit that foul, which is a classic LeBron move, manipulate the chaos so it favors him.
Of course. What do you mean, of course? Of course. Where everybody was trying to bait him. Are you joking? He shouldn't have had that many fouls. Should have been kicking people in their wee-wee.
But Draymond is not the type to just roll over. The man thrives in confrontation, so he knows how to survive the backlash. He plays the game on his terms, knowing exactly how LeBron's empire works, and he's smart enough to dodge the stuff that could really ruin him. And the best part is that he has tried to downplay it by telling the media they're friends off the court and that competition is just part of the game. But we all know he said that to protect his career and even his life. Because if you believe he and LeBron are genuinely friends, you're probably also one of those people who think Kobe's death was just a helicopter crash, but just like Draymond did, there's a younger generation that doesn't really care what LeBron thinks and isn't afraid to stand up to him. And that leads us straight to Dillon Brooks. It all went down during the 2022-2023 season when the Memphis Grizzlies faced the Los Angeles Lakers. Brooks stepped in front of every camera and casually said what no one else dared to say out loud.
Well, I guess what were you thinking?
I don't care, he's old. You know, I poke bears. I don't respect no one until they come.
He implied that LeBron could be beaten, and he did that publicly. On national television, imagine the audacity. And it didn't stop there. Brooks doubled down in a press conference days later, and even challenged him.
I guess he's a social media junkie. He be all over the social, so he be seeing, I guess, what I'm saying. I wish we let him shoot that shot, and now the shit would have been an air ball.
Think about that for a second. For decades, younger and even older players have tiptoed around this one dude and have moved with a certain fear of the consequences that come with going against him. But Brooks? This dude was built differently. Now, of course, the headlines had a field day. Brooks was framed as disrespectful, but the funny thing is, Brooks backed up all he said on the court. He played aggressive, high-intensity defense, contested every shot, ran the floor, and attacked LeBron, so he wasn't just trash-talking. And this is the moment where you realize something huge is happening. LeBron's aura, which used to intimidate entire generations, is slowly fading. Players like Brooks represent a younger era of the NBA who won't automatically respect you just because of your reputation. But if you think that's bold, wait till you hear about Lance Stevenson. Game 5 of the 2014 Eastern Conference Finals, Pacers versus the Heat. The stakes couldn't have been higher. And then, out of nowhere, Lance does the funniest thing you could think of. He leans in and blows air directly into LeBron's ear mid-play. Yeah, seriously. He just straight up blows in his ear while the ball's in motion. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but that moment instantly became legendary, and it actually worked. The Pacers won 93-90, forcing a Game 6, and LeBron put up one of his lowest output playoff games, ending up with 7 points that night. The crazy part is that Lance wasn't trying to be viral or be turned into a meme. He later said he didn't plan it, it just happened in the flow of the game.
Really trying to win the game, trying to get him unfocused. And I was trying anything.
But that's the genius. He found the soft spot, the thing that rattled the guy nobody dared to publicly mess with, and exploited it perfectly. But of course, the NBA doesn't reward going after LeBron like that. After this, Lance's career kind of took a weird turn. Teams got nervous, and with LeBron's influence, Lance's career moved from an NBA star to playing in smaller markets and coaching youth teams. What makes this story insane is the contrast. Dillon Brooks might have hinted at destroying the system, but Lance actually made LeBron feel tension in real time, and it changed the course of his career. Kendrick Perkins doesn't just talk about LeBron, he throws caution out the window. And sometimes, that honesty comes at a price. Even before social media made every hot take a national debate, Perkins was carving out a reputation for speaking the uncomfortable truth. He was part of the 2008 Celtics championship team and later the Thunder, so he's seen basketball at the highest levels. But what makes his perspective unique is that he watches LeBron not just as a player, but as a manipulator, and that is valid. Perkins has said things others wouldn't dream of saying out loud. In 2023, he openly suggested LeBron couldn't carry the Lakers to a title on his own, and pointed out that Anthony Davis should be the real focus of the team. Later, he added that LeBron's time with the Lakers has come to an end.
Well, LeBron and the Lakers their relationship has run its course.
That's bold, considering most media analysts these days wouldn't dare say that. But of course, when he said this, LeBron's fans fired back and called him a hater. That's the pattern in the NBA. LeBron is some sort of golden goose, so once you criticize him, you're a villain. But this also proves a point that some players escaped LeBron's matrix not by silence, but by speaking the truth and refusing to fear him. And that leads us to our final player, E&E's Kanter Freedom. See, Kendrick Perkins called out LeBron, but E&E's Kanter took it to an entirely different level. We're not talking about subtle digs or hot takes on a podcast. Kanter literally risked his career, his freedom, and his life just by refusing to play along. Around 2019, Kanter went public about China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims, calling out the NBA's cozy relationship with Chinese markets. But of course, the league had billions in sponsorships and broadcasting deals on the line. So Kanter's voice immediately made him a target, while LeBron basically said he couldn't comment because of his business and brand considerations. In other words, LeBron avoided any moral or ethical stance that could jeopardize his cash from coming in. So because of this, LeBron, together with the NBA, blackballed Kanter, and by 2022, Kanter wasn't on a single roster. He went from a player on competitive teams to fighting for the right to play at all. We just saw the length some players go to escape LeBron. Kawhi, Jokic, Kyrie, Draymond, Brooks, Lance, Perkins, Kanter. They all found their own path. And that's the lesson. LeBron's reach is long, but not infinite. So here's the real question. Who's next? Which player do you think has the courage to break free from the LeBron machine and redefine the NBA on their own terms?